A millionaire returning home after a 6-month business trip heads straight to his ex-wife's place to see his daughter. But parched from his journey, he stops at a supermarket for a drink. He freezes in his tracks when he sees the little girl begging outside the shopping center is his own daughter, and when she reveals the reason why the color drains from his face. A biting November chill crept through the red brick canyons of Queens, carrying that damp signature New York bite on the late afternoon air. A torrent of people rushed along the sidewalk, collars pulled high and heads ducked against the first cruel kiss of winter. Amidst this gray, hurried landscape, Elias Thorne's gleaming black Porsche Panamera glided silently, standing out like a panther among sheep. Inside the car, the warm sanctuary smelled of new leather, and the smooth notes of a jazz trio created a world entirely separate from the chaos outside. Elias tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, glancing at the passenger seat. There, a giant life-size teddy bear sat enthroned, its plump belly resting on 2 boxes of Belgian chocolates tied with extravagant red bows. "Almost there, big guy," Elias said to the bear, his voice brimming with an excitement he couldn't hide. "When Lily sees you, she's going to flip. 6 months? Way too long, wasn't it?" He adjusted his silk tie in the rearview mirror. His Italian suit was immaculate, his hair perfectly coiffed. Elias was the very picture of success, freshly returned from Europe with million-dollar contracts in his briefcase. He believed his generous financial support over the past year had ensured his daughter was living the life of a princess. The car slowed, pulling smoothly to the curb in front of a Fresh Market grocery store. Elias just needed a bottle of mineral water before driving the final stretch to the luxury apartment to surprise his daughter. He stepped out of the car, and the cold wind slapped his face, but it couldn't wipe the smile from his lips. He whistled a tune as he strode toward the automatic glass doors. Suddenly, he stopped short. Ahead, the stream of shoppers entering and leaving the store seemed to part, steering clear of a corner of the wall near a trash can as if it were cursed. Curious, Elias followed their gaze. A tiny shadow was huddled on the frigid concrete. At first, he intended to ignore it like everyone else, but a familiar splash of pink snagged his attention. The sweater. Though it was now grimy, faded to a dull gray, and worn through at the elbows, that unique cable-knit pattern. Elias remembered it vividly. He'd made a special call to Milan to have it custom-made for Lily's birthday last year. His heart skipped a beat. A vague, gnawing unease coiled in his stomach. He moved closer, ignoring the sour, acrid smell that assaulted his nostrils. "Hey, kid," Elias began, his voice hesitant, trying to see the face hidden by a curtain of matted hair. "Are you okay?" The child didn't look up. She just thrust a tattered cardboard box forward, her thin shoulders trembling violently beneath the threadbare sweater. "Just a penny. Please." The voice that emerged was raspy and small, like the mewling of an abandoned kitten. "I'll be good. I won't be any trouble." Elias froze. His entire body went rigid. That voice, though it was weak, though it was warped by the cold, he knew it. He dropped to his knees on the grime-slicked pavement, his hand reaching out, trembling. Lily. The box in the child's hands shook uncontrollably, the few coins inside clinking together. Slowly, she lifted her head. The moment those big blue eyes met his, Elias felt as if a vice had clamped around his chest, squeezing the air from his lungs. It was Lily, but not the rosy-cheeked, bright-eyed girl from the photos his ex-wife sent. Before him was a skeletal child, her face smeared with dirt. "Dad." The word was a choked whisper, his throat thick with bitterness. "It's me, honey. It's Daddy Elias." Instead of bursting into tears or throwing herself into his arms, Lily's eyes widened as she stared at his expensive suit, then down at his polished leather shoes. She shrank back, pressing herself against the cold brick wall, clutching the box of coins to her chest like a sacred treasure. Who are you?" Lily stammered, her voice cracking with panic. I don't have enough yet. Please don't take my money." Elias was stunned. "Lily, what are you talking about? It's me. Dad, I'm home. Look at me, sweetheart." He lunged forward, trying to take her small, icy hand. But Lily's reaction was horrifying. She shrieked, thrashing and recoiling as if he were about to strike her. "No, don't take it," Mom said. "I need $10. I don't have enough. Don't take me." She screamed and cried, her tears carving clean streaks through the filth on her cheeks. "Please, mister, I promise I'll sit still. I won't ask for much. Just don't take my money. Mom will punish me." "Oh my God, Lily!" Elias roared, his patience shattering under the weight of his agony. He couldn't listen to another word of her pleading. He grabbed her by the shoulders, feeling the sharp edges of her ribs through the thin fabric. "Nobody is taking your money. You're coming with me, right now." He scooped her up into his arms. She was terrifyingly light. "Ah, my money, my money," Lily shrieked, struggling violently. The cardboard box slipped from her grasp, hitting the ground with a soft thud. The coins, the meager reward for a day spent shivering in the cold, scattered across the sidewalk. Lily reached for them from over his shoulder, her small hands grasping at empty air. It fell. "It's all gone. Mommy. She's going to lock me in the closet. My money." "To hell with the money," Elias growled, tightening his grip so she wouldn't fall. He turned and strode quickly back to his car, leaving a crowd of murmuring onlookers behind. Lily sobbed, pounding on his back with tiny, feeble fists. "You're a bad man. Give me back my money. It's so dark. I'm scared of the closet. Mommy?" Elias bit his lip so hard he tasted blood fighting back his own tears. He shoved Lily into the passenger seat, ruthlessly sweeping the giant teddy bear and the fancy chocolates onto the floor. The Porsche's tires screamed as Elias slammed on the brakes in front of the corner grill. He didn't care about the parking lines or even bother to turn off the engine. The door flew open and he lifted Lily out, carrying her straight into the diner, leaving the encroaching cold behind. The diner was warm, smelling of grilled bread and hot coffee. Elias chose the most secluded booth in the back, setting Lily down on the soft vinyl seat. "Give me the kids' special extra fries and a hot milk, now." Elias snapped at the waitress, who was gaping at the contrast between Lily's filthy state and his own impeccable suit. The icy glare from Elias was enough to silence any questions. She scurried off to the kitchen. Lily sat huddled in the booth, her feet dangling lifelessly far above the floor. Her wide eyes darted around the diner, raw fear still etched on her face. "Dad," Lily whispered, her voice still trembling. "Where are we? Mom is going to find out I'm here." "She won't find out, I promise," Elias said, trying to keep his voice steady, though his insides were churning. He took a napkin and gently wiped a smudge of dirt from her cheek. "You're safe here. Are you hungry?" Just then, Lily's stomach let out a loud rumbling growl, shattering the tense silence. She blushed and looked down, her small hands twisting together in her lap. When a plate with a steaming, juicy burger was placed on the table, the aroma of grilled meat and melted cheese filled the air. A flicker of desire lit up Lily's eyes, but she remained frozen, her hands resting motionless in her lap. "Go on, eat," Elias said, pushing the plate closer. Lily swallowed hard, but she kept her eyes fixed on Elias, her expression filled with anxiety. Dad, do you have money to pay?" she whispered, glancing around as if afraid of being overheard. "Mom said, you can't eat if you don't have money. I lost all my money, so I can't eat." Elias's heart constricted. He pulled his thick leather wallet from his jacket and slapped it down on the table. "I have money. I have lots of money. You can eat as much as you want. Go on, Lily. No one is going to punish you." Hearing those words was like a key turning in a lock. Lily grabbed the burger with both hands, forgoing utensils, and shoved it into her mouth. She ate ravenously, chewing and swallowing so quickly that ketchup and sauce smeared across her nose and cheeks. "Slow down, sweetheart. No one's going to take it from you," Elias said, his voice thick with emotion as he passed her the hot milk. Between frantic bites, Lily started talking, the words tumbling out in broken fragments along with crumbs of bread. "I had bad luck today. The security guard at the store chased me away twice," she said, her mouth full. "Mom told me to bring back $10 before dinner. If I didn't..." She would be very sad. What happens when Mom gets sad? Elias asked, forcing back the rage that was building inside him. Lily paused her chewing for a moment, her eyes downcast. Her voice dropped to a whisper. When Mom gets sad, she puts me in the dark room. There are no lights in there, just the sound of water dripping. I'm really scared of the dark, so I have to get enough money. Elias clenched his fists under the table. The dark room she was talking about had to be the bathroom. Serafina was using the dark to torment a 6-year-old's mind. Is anyone else at the house, honey? Elias asked, struggling to keep his tone gentle. Oh, yes, Lily nodded, taking another huge bite of a French fry. Uncle Mike and Uncle Tony come over a lot. They play cards with Mom and they laugh really, really loud. But Mom says I'm not allowed to bother them. She says I'm a nuisance. If I make noise, she might accidentally. Lily stopped abruptly, dropping the fry back onto the plate. She quickly pulled the long frayed sleeve of her sweater down further, covering her entire hand, even though the diner was warm. It was an automatic, anxious gesture. Elias narrowed his eyes. A father's intuition told him something was terribly wrong beneath that old sweater. What's wrong? Is your sleeve too tight? He asked gently. No, I'm just cold, Lily answered quickly, avoiding his gaze. A large smear of ketchup was on her cheek. Elias instinctively reached out to wipe it away for her. Let me get that for you. The moment Lily saw his hand approaching, she flinched violently backward. No, don't. Fie. Her jerk was so forceful that her elbow knocked over the glass of milk. Crash. The glass tipped, sending a river of white liquid spilling across the table, soaking a large patch of her sweater sleeve. The color drained from Lily's face. She stared at the puddle of milk, her lips trembling as tears welled up in her eyes. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Don't lock me up. I'll clean it right now. In her sheer panic, she forgot to hide. She shoved her sleeve high up past her elbow to avoid getting it wetter and started frantically wiping the table with a napkin. The moment the grimy gray sleeve was pushed up, time stopped for Elias. Under the diner's pale fluorescent lights, his daughter's skeletal arm was laid bare. Her pale, almost translucent skin was a horrifying canvas of bruises. Some were faded yellow, others a deep violet purple. And interspersed between them were long red welts, etched deep into her flesh, the unmistakable marks of being pinched hard or struck with a thin object. Elias was paralyzed. His breath hitched in his throat. He stared at her arm, feeling as if his own flesh were being torn apart. Lily looked up and saw her father's eyes locked on her arm. She instantly yanked the sleeve down, hiding the painful evidence behind her back. It's nothing. I was just clumsy. Mom said it was my fault for standing too close when she lost at cards. Lily stammered, her voice shaking with fear. But Elias didn't hear her. All he could see was that bruised arm. A white-hot rage erupted inside him, incinerating every last shred of his composure and reason. He slowly rose to his feet, his fists clenched so tight, his nails drew blood from his palms. His eyes darkened, becoming as cold and brutal as an approaching hurricane. He didn't say a word, but his silence was more terrifying than 1,000 roars. Tonight, someone would pay for every mark on his daughter's arm. Elias pulled out his phone, his thumb pressing so hard on the screen it felt like the glass would shatter. Michael, get to the corner grill in Queens, now. Bring my private doctor. Don't ask questions. Elias's voice was so low and cold that the person on the other end went silent, managing only a clipped, "Yes, sir," before hanging up. He turned back to Lily. She was still cowering, trying to hide her bruised arm behind her back. You're going to be okay, Lily. I promise, Elias whispered, placing a soft kiss on her forehead. The sour scent of sweat and grime rose from her hair, but to Elias, it was the smell of pure agony. 15 minutes later, Michael's car screeched to a halt outside the diner. His trusted assistant stepped inside, freezing for a second at the sight of his boss's daughter's tragic state, but immediately understanding the gravity of the situation when he met Elias's blazing eyes. Take her to the mansion. Take care of her. If a single hair on her head is harmed, you know the consequences." Elias growled, handing Lily over to Michael. Lily clung to Elias's coat, unwilling to let go. "Daddy, where are you going? Don't leave me. I have to go get back what belongs to you," Elias said gently, prying her fingers away, forcing a pained smile. "Be a good girl and go with Uncle Michael. I'll be home soon." As Michael's car disappeared into the night, the smile on Elias's face vanished. He vaulted into his Porsche and slammed his foot on the gas. The engine roared like a caged beast as the car shot into the darkness, aimed straight for the glittering skyline of Manhattan. The Upper East Side was as glamorous and arrogant as ever, but to Elias now, it was just a gilded cage hiding something rotten. He abandoned the car at the building's entrance, tossing the keys to the doorman who was bowing low, and strode into the elevator without a word. Floor 45. The penthouse he was once so proud to call home. Elias slid his key into the lock. The heavy oak door swung open. A wave of foul air hit him so putrid it made him recoil. This wasn't the smell of a home. It was the smell of a cheap bar at closing time, stale wine, cigarette smoke that had seeped into every curtain fiber, and the faint sour scent of rotting food from the kitchen. Elias flipped on the lights. The magnificent living room was in utter ruins. Empty liquor bottles were scattered across the marble floor. Clothes were strewn over the designer sofa. He stepped through the mess, his leather shoes crunching on broken glass. His target wasn't the living room. He walked straight down the hallway toward his daughter's bedroom. His heart pounded against his ribs, a painful, heavy rhythm. He was afraid. He was terrified of what he was about to see, and his fear became a horrifying reality the moment he stood before Lily's door. A small but monstrous detail caught his eye, a brand new shiny metal bolt lock installed on the outside of the white wooden door. A nonsensical design. A design with only one purpose: to keep someone in. Elias's trembling hand touched the cold metal. He yanked it open. Click, the dry sound echoed in the dreadful silence. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. Darkness enveloped the room. The air inside was colder and damper than the hallway, feeling more like a dungeon than a little princess's bedroom. Elias fumbled for the light switch, but nothing happened. The bulb had been removed or had burned out and been ignored. He turned on his phone's flashlight. The white beam swept across the room, exposing the naked truth. It was empty. The beautiful pink princess bed with its flowing canopy was gone. The wardrobe once filled with custom-made dresses was gone. The toy shelf, the dollhouse, the collection of teddy bears. All of it had vanished. The large room was nothing but 4 bare walls, stained and grimy. In the middle of the cold wooden floor lay a thin, tattered blanket, balled up like a pile of rags. Next to it were a few moldy cracker wrappers and an empty plastic water bottle. This was where his daughter had been living for the past 6 months. In the dark, in the cold, and in utter solitude, Elias sank to his knees beside the filthy blanket, feeling as if someone had carved out his chest with a knife. He reached down and pried at the edge of the blanket with his fingers. He pulled out a hardcover sketchbook. It had been hidden carefully, as if its owner feared it would be found and confiscated. Elias opened it. The rough pages materialized under the shaky beam of his flashlight. These weren't drawings of flowers, suns, or rainbows like other children made. These were violent, fearful scribbles in black and red crayon. The first page, monstrous figures with wide, gaping mouths holding green bottles. Next to them was a tiny, cowering dot. A crooked caption underneath read, "Monsters drinking spicy water." The next page, a pitch-black room colored in solid black crayon with only a small crying white speck in the middle. The caption, "Mom locked me in. I'm scared." Elias flipped through the pages, hot tears blurring his vision, dripping onto the innocent drawings. He stopped at the last page. It showed a tall man in a suit standing far away, as faint as a ghost. In the corner, a tiny girl was reaching for the man, but the distance was too great. The shaky words below read, "Daddy was gone a long time. Daddy forgot Lily." I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, baby girl. Elias sobbed, clutching the sketchbook to his chest, his head bowed against the cold floor. He had thought money was the ultimate protection. He was a fool. He had left his child with a demon. Suddenly a commotion came from the front door of the apartment. The clacking of high heels on the floor mixed with drunk, flirtatious laughter. "Damn it, Tony, can you believe it? That brat didn't bring home a single dime today." The familiar slurred voice of Serafina rang out shrill and cruel. "I'm going to have to teach her a lesson later. Useless and lazy." "Come on, babe, let's see what else in here we can sell first." A man's voice replied, followed by a guttural laugh. "That chandelier looks like it could fetch a pretty penny." The sound of staggering footsteps approached the living room. Elias slowly raised his head. The tears on his face had dried, replaced by a terrifying calm. His eyes, once warm when looking at his daughter, were now dark pits burning with the fires of retribution. He stood up, straightened his collar, and tucked the sketchbook under his arm. He walked out of the prison cell of a bedroom down the dark hallway toward the sliver of light from the living room. The front door was wide open. Serafina, in a ridiculously short dress and garish makeup, stumbled in her arm slung around a heavily tattooed man. "Where is she? Where is that little brat?" Serafina yelled, her eyes scanning the room. "Who are you looking for?" The deep, resonant voice from the darkness at the end of the hall made them both jump. Serafina froze her eyes wide with terror. Elias stepped out of the shadows, a towering figure in the dimly lit living room. His shadow stretched across the floor, engulfing the two intruders. He looked at Serafina, his gaze as sharp and cold as the Grim Reaper's scythe. The laughter died. The room plunged into a deathly silence. Serafina's jaw dropped and the wine bottle in her hand slipped shattering on the floor. Take a breath, the next part is going to be intense. If you're also feeling outraged for little Lily and are rooting for Elias to make this cruel mother pay, hit the like button now to give him strength. Don't look away because the most dramatic confrontation and the price of evil are about to begin. Elias, oh my God, when did you get back? The terror on Serafina's face was fleeting, gone in a flash. She quickly composed herself, a bright, strained smile plastered on her red lipsticked mouth. She picked her way through the shattered glass, swaying her hips in a familiar, seductive rhythm as she approached him. "Why didn't you call? I would have prepared something," she cooed, tucking a stray lock of hair behind her ear, her voice as sweet as poisoned honey. "Look at this place, it's a bit of a mess. I just had a few friends over. You know how lonely it gets here all by myself." Her lover, Tony, leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed with a defiant air. He smirked, but his eyes darted nervously, assessing the powerful build under Elias's shirt and the overwhelming presence the man commanded. Elias didn't answer. He stood as immovable as a rock in a flood, his cold, merciless gaze boring into Serafina's soul. He didn't blink, didn't make a single extraneous movement. His silence was so heavy, it made the smile on her face freeze and crack. What's wrong?" Serafina began to falter. She stopped a few feet away from him, her eyes scanning the wrecked room as if searching for a new script. "Oh, you're looking for Lily, aren't you?" "Oh, that child." Serafina suddenly brought a hand to her mouth and began to sob. Crocodile tears flowed as if from a faucet. "You have no idea how hard it's been, Elias." She wept, her voice trembling with theatrical drama. "Ever since you left, she completely changed. She became defiant, sullen, always screaming and breaking things. I tried my best, but she ran away from home a few days ago. I've been sick with worry. I was just about to call the police when you showed up." "Shut up." The two words, low and heavy, cut through her pathetic performance. Before Serafina could react, Elias's arm shot out. Whap! It wasn't a slap. It was a thick stack of photographs thrown hard onto the glass coffee table in front of her. The loud noise made Serafina jump back, nearly tripping over the empty bottles at her feet. The photos scattered across the table. Each one was a clear, damning indictment. Lily huddled by a trash can. Lily with a face streaked with dirt. Lily holding up a ragged cardboard box begging for change, and the childish sketchbook filled with monstrous figures holding bottles of liquor. Serafina stared at the photos. Her face cycled through a spectrum of colors from ghostly white to furious red, then a blotchy purple of rage. Her eyes bulged bloodshot and wild. The mask of the grieving mother shattered, revealing the true face of a monster. "You," Serafina hissed, looking up at Elias with pure hatred. "You were spying on me." "I don't need to spy on you," Elias said, his voice glacial. "I just needed to look at my daughter to know exactly what kind of person you are." "Your daughter," Serafina laughed a wild, bitter sound. She lunged forward, sweeping the photos off the table and stomping on them maniacally. "She's not my daughter. She's a burden, a goddamn millstone around my neck." "What did you say?" Elias clenched his fists, fighting the urge to wrap them around her throat. "I said she's a burden," Serafina screamed in his face, spittle flying from her lips. "Look at her. She has your eyes always staring at me, judging me. I'm 26, Elias. I'm still young. I want to live my life. But because I had her, I lost everything, my figure, my career, my freedom." She jabbed a finger at his face, shrieking like a madwoman. "You think $20,000 a month is a big deal. That's the price you pay me, for my youth which is buried in this prison with that little brat. I need money to start over. I need a big win at the casino to get out of here. But my luck is bad. And it's bad because she's a curse." Tony, seeing things escalate, tried to slip out the door. But as he turned, he came face to face with two tall, imposing police officers blocking his exit. "Freeze, hands up." The officer's command was sharp and absolute. The apartment door swung fully open and a team of police swarmed in, followed by Elias's personal lawyer holding a thick file. Serafina spun around. The sight of the police sent her into a full-blown panic, but instead of surrendering, the madness took over. She grabbed an empty bottle from the table and lunged at Elias. "You called the cops, I'll show you. You ruined my business." She never reached him. Two officers tackled her, slamming her onto the cold floor. The icy click of handcuffs echoed as they secured her hands behind her back. "Let me go. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm her mother. I have the right to discipline her," Serafina shrieked, thrashing wildly and spewing a torrent of vulgar curses. Tony was also cuffed, his face ashen, trembling, and begging for mercy. Elias stood motionless. He looked down at Serafina writhing on the floor, her hair a tangled mess, her makeup smeared by tears and sweat. The woman he had once loved, once exchanged vows with, was now revealed as nothing more than a greedy, selfish monster. He felt no satisfaction, no victory, only a sickening disgust rising in his throat, mixed with an infinite sorrow for Lily. "Take her away," Elias said quietly to the lead officer, then turned his back, unwilling to look at her for another second. Serafina's curses faded as the elevator doors closed. The apartment fell into an eerie silence. Only Elias remained standing in the middle of the ruined living room. He looked down. Something was peeking out from under the sofa where Serafina had been standing. Elias picked it up. It was a tiny stuffed rabbit, one ear torn, its stuffing spilling out. It was filthy, lost among the garbage. It was probably the only toy Lily had managed to hide that hadn't been sold. Elias clutched the small rabbit in his large hand. He brought it to his nose. A faint scent of Lily still clung to it, overpowered by the stench of alcohol and smoke. He closed his eyes, feeling the crushing loneliness his daughter must have endured in this very home. No one to protect her, no one to listen, only darkness and cruelty. "Let's go home, little one," Elias whispered to the stuffed rabbit, placing it in his breast pocket closest to his heart. He walked quickly out the door, without a backward glance, leaving the rotten apartment and its painful past behind him. Minutes later, at Elias's residence, the private elevator doors opened, delivering Elias into the vast expanse of his penthouse in Midtown Manhattan. The atmosphere here was a world apart. It was serene, cool, and smelled faintly of lemongrass essential oil. But this very perfection was terrifying Lily. She was huddled in the corner of an enormous Italian leather sofa, looking as small and pathetic as a field mouse in a giant's palace. Michael and the housekeeper Martha stood at a respectful distance, their faces etched with worry, not daring to approach, because any movement towards her made Lily flinch. "Daddy's home," Elias said softly, trying to make his voice as gentle as possible. Lily looked up. Seeing Elias, her tense shoulders relaxed slightly, but her eyes continued to dart nervously around the massive room, ever watchful. "Daddy, this house is so big," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Is someone hiding over there?" She pointed towards the floor-to-ceiling curtains. "No one's there, sweetheart. It's just me, Uncle Michael, and Mrs. Ely. This is our home. You're completely safe here." Elias signaled to Mrs. Ely. The housekeeper understood, smiling warmly. "Little miss, let me take you for a nice bath. The warm water will make you feel much better." But the moment Mrs. Ely finished speaking and reached out a hand to guide her, Lily recoiled, shaking her head frantically. "No, I don't want a bath. I'm clean. I promise I'm clean," Lily cried, wrapping her arms around herself, rubbing at the dirty sweater as if to prove her point. "It's just to feel fresh, honey," Elias said, kneeling to meet her gaze. "You're cold, and a warm bath will feel so good." After some patient coaxing, Lily finally gave a reluctant nod, clinging to his sleeve as he led her to the bathroom. The penthouse bathroom was as large as a bedroom, magnificent, with a white marble jacuzzi tub. Martha had already filled it with warm water, and a thick layer of white fluffy bubbles covered the surface, releasing the calming scent of lavender. But what should have been a paradise was in Lily's eyes a vision of hell. The moment she saw the tub full of white foam, Lily's pupils contracted. She let out a piercing scream that tore through the quiet apartment. "Ah, no, don't." Lily ripped her hand from Elias's and scrambled backward, clinging to the wooden doorframe. Her fingernails scraped against the glossy paint, creating a high-pitched screeching sound. Her entire body trembled violently, her face deathly pale. "Lily, what's wrong?" Elias cried, rushing to embrace her. In his arms, Lily thrashed wildly, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't see her father or the luxurious room. In her terror, she was seeing a horrifying past. "Don't hold me under. I promise I'll be quiet. I've stopped. I'm not crying anymore, Mommy." Lily's screams were like knives plunging into Elias's heart. He froze. "Don't hold me under. I promise I'll be quiet." The image that flashed in his mind was sickeningly clear. Serafina, in a drunken or gambling-fueled rage, annoyed by a child's cries, holding her daughter's head under water to silence her. The warm water, the soap bubbles, they weren't for comfort. They were instruments of torment, the feeling of suffocation, the razor-thin line between life and death. "Drain the tub! Drain it now!" Elias roared at the stunned Mrs. Ely. As the water gurgled away, Elias held Lily tight, stroking her back and whispering into her ear. "The water's gone, honey. It's all gone. Daddy's here. No one is going to hold you under. Breathe, baby. Just breathe." It took a long time for Lily's convulsions to subside, leaving only choked sobs. She collapsed against Elias's shoulder, drenched in a cold sweat. "Don't make me go in there. I'm scared," she whimpered. "Okay, we won't go in there. We'll get you cleaned up out here, right in the living room. How about that?" Elias carried her back to the sofa. With his own hands, he dipped a warm washcloth into a small basin of water and gently wiped away the layers of grime from her face, her hands, and her thin legs. Lily sat quietly, the fear still lingering in her eyes, but she no longer fought him. She let her father care for her, occasionally glancing around the open space to reassure herself she wasn't trapped. By the time Lily was clean and dressed in a soft silk pajama set, the clock had struck midnight. "Time for bed, little princess," Elias said, lifting her into his arms and heading toward the pink bedroom he had meticulously prepared. The room was stunning, with a princess canopy bed, a thick down mattress, and dozens of brand new teddy bears. But as soon as they entered, Lily shook her head. "I don't want to sleep in here," she said firmly, sliding out of his arms. "Why not, sweetheart? The bed is so comfy." "It's too high. If I fall asleep and Mom comes back, I won't be able to run away in time." Lily said a simple sentence that revealed the hypervigilance of a child who had lived as prey. "It's too soft. I'll sink in. I won't be able to breathe." Clutching a small pillow, Lily turned and walked out of the bedroom. She wandered through the vast apartment, her bare feet silent on the hardwood floors, as if she were afraid of waking an invisible monster. Finally, she stopped in front of Elias's home office. She stared at the massive solid black oak desk in the center of the room. Lily crawled underneath it. She curled into a tight ball in the darkest corner, pulling the pillow over her head. "Lily, what are you doing under there?" Elias knelt on the floor, peering into the darkness under the desk. "It's safe here," Lily's tiny voice echoed out. "It has a hard roof. If Uncle Tony comes, he won't see me. He can't pull me out." Elias felt a sharp sting behind his eyes. He had hundreds of millions of dollars. He could buy his daughter any bed in the world, but he couldn't buy her the feeling of safety in a warm, soft bed. The safest place for his daughter right now was the cold, cramped space under a desk, like a burrow a wounded animal seeks to hide from its enemies. "Can you come out here with me? I'll stand guard while you sleep," Elias pleaded, his voice thick with emotion. "No, you're too big. You can't fit in here. You stay outside and watch the door," Lily insisted. Elias was helpless. He couldn't force her. He had already forced too much on her today. He stood up, dimmed the lights in the room, leaving only a single soft yellow nightlight glowing in a far corner. He took a thin blanket from a closet and returned to the desk. Elias didn't sit in his chair. He lay down on the hardwood floor, right beside the desk where his daughter was hidden. He spread the blanket over himself, rested his head on his arm, and faced the dark space under the desk. "I'll lie right here with you, okay?" Elias whispered. From the darkness, there was a soft rustle. Lily peeked out. Seeing her powerful father lying on the floor on her level seemed to reassure her. Elias slowly extended a hand into the space under the desk, palm up. "If you get scared, just hold my hand. I'm not going anywhere." A long time passed in absolute silence. Then Elias felt tiny, cold fingers tentatively touch his. A small hand then wrapped around his thumb, clinging to it like a drowning person to a piece of driftwood. Lily's breathing gradually evened out, though she still twitched and whimpered in her fitful sleep. Elias lay there, his eyes wide open, staring at the dark ceiling. Silent tears streamed down his face, hot against his temples, soaking into the polished wood floor. He didn't dare wipe them away for fear of disturbing his daughter's fragile sleep. The first night of Lily Thorne's new life of luxury was spent under a cold desk beside her millionaire father, who wept in silence, powerless against the invisible scars that money could never heal. Pale morning light streamed through the glass doors, casting a long stripe of sun across the oak floor. Elias stirred, his body aching from a night spent contorted on the hard ground. He rubbed his eyes and instinctively reached under the desk, searching for the small, warm hand that had anchored him through the night. It was empty. Sleep vanished instantly. Elias shot up, his head cracking against the edge of the desk with a loud thud he barely registered. "Lily," he called out, his voice raw with panic. No answer. The small blanket under the desk was cold. Elias bolted from the office and sprinted down the hall, his heart hammering against his ribs. "Lily, where are you?" He burst into the living room and froze. Lily was there, hiding behind a thick crimson velvet curtain. She was standing on her toes, peeking through a tiny gap at the bustling street below. In her hand was a piece of dry, moldy bread, the one he'd seen her sneak into her pocket at the diner. She was nibbling on it cautiously, her eyes still scanning the outside world like a soldier on watch. Elias was about to call out to her when a soft chime from the front door stopped him. The door opened to reveal an elderly woman with silver hair pulled into a neat bun, her kind face a roadmap of gentle wrinkles. It was Martha, Elias's mother, who had caught the first flight from Florida after her son's frantic call. Accompanying her was a middle-aged woman with gold-rimmed glasses who exuded an air of calm intelligence, Dr. Evelyn Reed, one of New York's leading child psychologists. Martha saw Elias disheveled and dark-eyed, Then her gaze fell upon her frail granddaughter cowering behind the curtain. She didn't rush over, didn't create a scene. She simply gave Elias a gentle nod, signaling for him to remain quiet. Martha walked slowly to an armchair near the fireplace, a safe distance from Lily. She sat down, took a ball of sky blue yarn and 2 knitting needles from her handbag. Click, clack, click. The steady rhythmic sound of the needles filled the quiet room. Martha began to knit, humming an old lullaby, her eyes never once looking toward Lily. Her calm, non-threatening presence seemed to have a strange power. Lily stopped chewing her bread. She cautiously poked her head out from behind the curtain, her big eyes watching the strange new grandmother do something so utterly normal, yet captivating. Seeing Lily relax, Dr. Reed moved forward and sat cross-legged on the plush sheepskin rug in the middle of the room. She hadn't brought a notepad, but instead emptied a bag of toys onto the floor. They were felt hand puppets, a father, a mother, a little girl, and a few small animals. "Hello, Lily," Dr. Reed said, her voice as warm as the morning sun. "My name is Evelyn. I have some new friends here, but I don't know their names or what their lives are like. Would you help me name them?" Lily shyly stepped out from behind the curtain, still clutching the piece of bread. She approached cautiously, staring at the puppets. After a moment's hesitation, she sat down on the edge of the rug, a safe distance from the doctor. "Who is this one?" Dr. Reed asked, holding up the father puppet. Lily was silent for a moment, then pointed to Elias, who was holding his breath in the corner. "That's Daddy Elias, but he's gone a lot. He lives in the TV." "And what about this one?" Dr. Reed held out the mother puppet. This time, Lily didn't hesitate. She snatched the mother puppet and slid it onto her hand. Her innocent face hardened, her brow furrowed, and her lips curled into a contemptuous sneer. What happened next made Elias's blood run cold. Lily, wearing the mother puppet, began to viciously beat the daughter puppet lying on the floor. Her voice was no longer her own. It became shrill and harsh, a perfect imitation of Serafina's drunken slurs. "You're useless, get up. How dare you sleep when I'm losing at cards?" Lily shrieked, slamming the puppet against the floor repeatedly. "Your father left you. He has a new wife now. You're a waste of food. Get out there and earn some money. If you don't have money, don't you dare show your face in this house again." Elias had to turn away. He felt his chest being ripped open. He could put ointment on the bruises on Lily's arms, but these venomous words, they were embedded in her young mind like rusty nails. Serafina hadn't just neglected her, she had brainwashed her, poisoning her with the belief that she was abandoned and worthless. "And if you cry," Lily whispered, her tone turning chillingly cold as the mother puppet squeezed the daughter puppet's neck, "I'll put you in the dark room. Do you want to meet the monster in the bathtub?" Dr. Reed maintained her calm demeanor, though a flicker of pain crossed her eyes. She gently held out a small bear puppet. "What about this little bear? Can he help?" Lily suddenly stopped. She dropped the mother puppet and picked up the little bear. The fury in her eyes melted away, replaced by a sheen of tears. She hugged the bear to her chest, stroking it gently. "This is Brown Bear," Lily said, her voice returning to that of a fragile 6-year-old. "He was the only one who listened to me. When I was locked in the closet, he would hug me so I wouldn't be so scared." Then she looked up at Dr. Reed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "But Mom sold him. She snatched him out of my hands. She threw him at that smelly uncle for a bottle of yellow water. She said you can't eat a teddy bear, but you can drink liquor." Lily sobbed. "Brown Bear's gone. There's no one left to protect me." Dr. Reed motioned for Elias to come closer. She spoke softly, just loud enough for him and his mother to hear. "This is more serious than I thought. She's suffering from complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And more heartbreakingly, she's carrying what we call survivor's guilt. She believes that everything bad that happened, her father leaving, her mother's anger, the lack of money, is her fault. She believes she has to pay for her own existence, either by earning money or by being punished." Elias looked at his daughter, his heart breaking. He wanted to run to her, to hold her, and tell her none of it was her fault, but he knew that right now words were meaningless. The living room was flooded with morning light, but the atmosphere remained as heavy as lead. A week had passed since that tearful therapy session. Lily's night terrors had lessened, but she remained withdrawn, moving through the penthouse like a silent ghost, constantly trying to please everyone and avoid making a sound. Elias watched his daughter sitting perfectly still on the sofa, fiddling with the hem of her pajamas. He knew he had to do something to break through the ice. As a businessman, he was used to solving problems with action and resources. What child doesn't love presents, he thought. Perhaps a beautiful gift would remind her of the cherished princess she once was. "Lily, look what Daddy has for you." Elias strode into the room holding a giant gift box wrapped in shimmering silver paper and tied with a massive pink silk bow. He placed it on the coffee table with a slightly forced enthusiasm. Lily flinched, looking from the box to her father. There was no gasp of delight, no excited gleam in her eyes, only that familiar, constant vigilance. "Open it, sweetheart," Elias encouraged, gently pushing the box towards her. Lily reached out hesitantly, carefully, untying the silk bow without tearing the wrapping paper. When she lifted the lid, a breathtaking little girl's ball gown was revealed. It was made of soft, cream-colored organza, embroidered with hundreds of Swarovski crystals that sparkled like tiny stars. It was an exclusive design from a Parisian fashion house worth thousands of dollars. "Isn't it beautiful?" Elias smiled, waiting for her reaction. Lily stared at the dress. She reached out a tiny finger and touched the cool fabric, then snatched her hand back as if she'd been burned. She shrank back into the sofa cushions, her face growing pale. This must have been very expensive, right? "Daddy?" she asked in a tiny trembling voice. Elias froze. He never expected a 6-year-old's first question to be about the price tag. "The price doesn't matter, my love. It's a gift. I want you to wear it and be the most beautiful girl in the world." But his reassurance had the opposite effect. Lily began to breathe rapidly, her eyes darting back and forth as if trying to solve a complex math problem. She muttered to herself, "So expensive. It must be a lot of money. Mom said anything that sparkles is expensive." Suddenly, Lily leapt off the sofa. She sprinted to the corner of the room to a large decorative cabinet. She dropped to the floor, reached deep underneath it, and pulled out something Elias had completely forgotten about: the tattered cardboard box she had used for begging. He had assumed the maids had thrown it out. Lily carried the box back to Elias. She turned it upside down over the marble floor. Clang jingle. The harsh sounds echoed in the quiet room. A shower of loose change and crumpled dirty $1 bills rained down, a stark contrast to the luxurious gift box beside them. It was the fortune Lily had amassed through her sweat, tears, and humiliation on the streets. Elias stared, completely bewildered. "Lily, what are you doing?" Lily dropped to her knees, her trembling hands gathering all the money into a small pile. She pushed it towards Elias's feet. She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "I'm paying you back. I have money. Here, take it," she sobbed, her voice breaking. "This should be enough for the dress, right, Daddy? I still have my food money. I'll eat less, I promise." "Lily," Elias was speechless, feeling the ground crumble beneath him. "Please don't sell me," Lily wailed, clasping her hands together in a desperate plea. "I have money now. Don't sell me to someone else like Mom sold the chandelier. I'll be good. I won't cost you any more money. Please don't sell me." Every word his daughter spoke was like a sledgehammer blow to his chest. The dress slipped from his hands and fell to the floor. The sparkling crystals now seemed mocking and meaningless next to the pile of dirty change. He was struck by a truth so devastating it nearly brought him to his knees. In the twisted world Serafina had created for Lily, love wasn't free. It was a luxury item that had to be purchased with cash. Lily's value wasn't in being his daughter, it was in the amount of money she could bring home. Every material provision, every expensive gift he offered now wasn't a joy. To Lily, they were massive debts, crushing her small shoulders, an excuse for an adult to sell her off at any moment if she couldn't pay her way. Elias was wrong. So terribly wrong. He was trying to use money, the very poison that had corrupted her soul, to heal the wound it had created. "No, that's not how it works, my love." Elias swept the pile of change aside, sending coins scattering across the room. He lunged forward and pulled his trembling daughter into a fierce hug, holding her tight against him. "I don't want your money. I will never ever sell you. You are priceless. Do you understand me? I will never sell you." Elias cried out, his tears mingling with his daughter's. He kissed her hair, her forehead, trying to transfer the warmth from his own body to chase away the chilling fear in her heart. Lily continued to cry, but her sobs slowly softened into muffled hiccups against her father's solid chest. Elias scooped her up. He stepped over the expensive dress lying discarded on the floor over the scattered coins. He didn't give them a second glance. He carried Lily straight to the large glass doors that opened onto the balcony. Outside, the rooftop garden was bathed in sunlight. "Look, honey," Elias whispered in her ear, pointing to the lush green plants. "Tomorrow we're not going to talk about money anymore. We're going to do something different, something that doesn't cost a single penny." Lily rested her head on her father's shoulder. Her swollen eyes were still wet with tears, but she had stopped trembling. She followed her father's pointing finger to where green sprouts were reaching for the sun, and deep inside her, a fragile seed of hope began to stir. The next morning when Lily woke up, she was surprised to find her father not in his usual dark suit. Instead, he was standing in the living room wearing a faded gray t-shirt and jeans splattered with a few drops of paint. "You're awake, little princess!" Elias beamed, holding 2 pairs of tiny gardening gloves. "We have a very important job to do today." Lily looked cautiously at her father's clothes, then down at her own clean pajamas. "What job do I need to wear a nice dress?" "No nice dresses needed. Today we're going to get our hands a little dirty." Elias led Lily by the hand up to the breezy rooftop garden. There, her grandmother Martha was already busy beside several terracotta pots, surrounded by packets of sunflower and cherry tomato seeds. "Good morning, my love," Martha said, looking up with a smile as warm as the morning sun. "Come and give your grandma a hand." Elias handed Lily a small green trowel. "Your mission is to fill this pot with dirt." Lily took the trowel hesitantly, eyeing the pile of black soil. She remembered all the times her mother had screamed at her for getting a speck of mud on the carpet. "But it's dirty, Daddy," Lily whispered, curling her fingers back. "Mom said being dirty is bad, and bad kids get punished." Elias knelt beside her. He scooped up a handful of dirt with his bare hands, letting it run through his fingers. "Dirt isn't bad, sweetheart. Dirt helps plants grow. Look," he said, smearing a bit of soil on his own cheek, making a funny dark streak. "Now I'm dirty too. Is anyone punishing me?" Lily's eyes widened as she looked at her father, then at her giggling grandmother. A strange sense of security settled in her heart. For the first time, she hesitantly dug the trowel into the soil. Then, a second scoop. When a little dirt spilled onto the patio tiles, she looked at her father in panic. But Elias just smiled and said, "It's okay, we'll just sweep it up later." The tension melted away. Lily began to dig with enthusiasm. Together, she and her father planted the tiny seeds in the damp earth and carefully watered them. "When will it grow tomatoes to sell for money, Daddy?" Lily asked, her old mindset not yet gone. Elias gently wiped a smudge of dirt from her nose. "We're not going to sell them, honey. We're growing them to watch them, to take care of them, just like I take care of you. This plant needs water and sun to grow, and you need my love. I love you because you're my little seed, not because you can make money. Do you understand?" Lily looked at the pot in silence, blinking as if trying to process a completely new and foreign concept. Over the following days, the penthouse was transformed. It was no longer a museum of luxury furniture, but a real living home. Laughter began to fill the rooms. One afternoon, Elias and Lily decided to bake cookies. Flour flew everywhere. When Elias clumsily tipped the whole bowl over his head, turning himself into a walking snowman, Lily burst out laughing. It was a real joyful, tinkling laugh, so pure and unexpected that it made both Elias and Martha freeze for a second in sheer happiness. They cleaned up the mess together, read books together on a sofa piled high with pillows. Lily started to understand that it was presence time and laughter that connected them, not soulless, expensive gifts. A corner of the living room became Martha and Lily's knitting workshop. Patiently, her grandmother taught her the basic stitches. The small hands that had once trembled while begging for coins now fumbled with bright red yarn. Many times Lily wanted to give up. She was close to tears when she compared her lumpy, uneven stitches to her grandmother's perfect scarf. "It's too ugly, Grandma. Daddy won't like it," Lily whimpered, about to unravel her work. Martha gently stopped her. "Nothing you make is ugly, my love," she said, her voice soft but firm. "This is your hard work. You've sat here for 3 days without quitting. That effort is what matters most. Your father will see your heart in every one of these stitches." Encouraged, Lily kept at it. Finally, after a week, the scarf was finished. It was short, crooked, tight in some places, and loose in others, with a few stray ends sticking out. That evening, when Elias came home from work, Lily stood nervously by the door, hiding the scarf behind her back. "Daddy?" she whispered. "What is it, sweetheart?" Elias bent down to kiss her forehead. Lily took a deep breath and held out the scarf. I made this for you. It's not as nice as your ties, but I made it myself." Elias looked at the bright red scarf. He took it as if it were a fragile treasure, running his fingers over the clumsy stitches, feeling the effort and love woven into every fiber. "Who told you it's not nice?" Elias said, his voice thick with emotion. "This is the most beautiful scarf I have ever seen in my entire life." He immediately wrapped it around his neck, despite the apartment being a comfortable 75 degrees. The scarf was so short, it barely made one loop looking comical against his elegant suit. But Elias stood tall, his face beaming with pride. He knelt on one knee, looking deep into Lily's wide, astonished eyes. "Thank you, Lily. I know you spent so much time on this. This is the most precious gift I have ever received, because it was made with your time and your love. All my money could buy 1,000 scarves, but it could never ever buy this one. Do you understand?" Lily's eyes lit up. A spark of understanding and trust ignited in their clear depths. She reached out and touched the scarf on her father's neck, feeling its warmth. "You really like it?" she asked again, her voice steadier now. "I didn't have to pay for the yarn. Grandma gave it to me." "I love it." Elias smiled, pulling her into a hug. "I love it, and I love you." Lily wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder. She was beginning to understand. Her worth wasn't in a wallet or in cold, hard coins. It was in her heart, in her own 2 hands that were learning how to love. In her father's warm embrace, Lily whispered something that surprised Elias. He pulled back, looking into her eyes to be sure. "Are you sure?" he asked. Lily nodded, her gaze unusually determined. "Yes, I want to go back to the fresh market. I want to see Mr. Joe." "What for, sweetheart?" "I'm not going to ask for money," Lily said, her voice firm. "I want to do what Grandma and you did for me. I want to give him a gift." Elias squeezed his daughter's small hand, his heart swelling with pride. He knew this was the final step she needed to take to truly escape the ghosts of her past. Tomorrow they would return to the place where the nightmare began, not as victims, but as bearers of hope. The next morning, the New York sky was overcast, but inside Elias's heart, it had never been brighter. Today was the day of Serafina's sentencing. He had decided against taking Lily to the courthouse. He didn't want his daughter to see her mother in prison garb, nor did he want her to relive those horrific memories ever again. Inside the Queens County family court, the air was thick with tension. Serafina sat at the defendant's table, haggard and gaunt, all her former glamour stripped away. When she saw Elias enter with his lawyer, a final flicker of hope sparked in her eyes, only to be extinguished by his icy, detached expression. The trial was swift and brutal. The evidence was irrefutable. The photos of Lily begging, the disturbing sketchbook, and the powerful testimony from Dr. Evelyn Reed detailing the child's profound and lasting psychological trauma. Defendant Serafina Vance, the judge, declared his gavel, striking the wood with a deafening crack. This court sentences you to 15 years in prison for aggravated child abuse fraud and possession of a controlled substance. Your parental rights are hereby terminated permanently and irrevocably. You are forbidden from contacting the victim in any form, Serafina screamed as bailiffs moved in to handcuff her, lunging toward Elias. Elias, you can't do this to me. I'm her mother. I was just trying to teach her, she shrieked desperately, tears streaking her face. Help me, I'm begging you, I was wrong. Elias stood and straightened his suit jacket. He walked to the barrier, looking directly into the eyes of the woman he once loved. You are not a mother. Elias said, his voice low, but every word crystal clear. You are merely the person who gave birth to her. A mother doesn't sell her child for a hand of cards. He turned and walked away, leaving her fading screams behind the heavy steel door. Justice had been served. The ghost of the past was finally locked away. That afternoon, the Porsche Panamera once again drove towards Queens, but this time it carried none of the arrogance of a millionaire on a mission. The trunk was filled with containers of hot food that Lily and Mrs. Ely had prepared that morning, along with bags of clean, warm clothing. As the car pulled into the familiar parking lot of the Fresh Market, Lily suddenly fell silent. She stared through the window at the corner of the wall where she used to sit. A shiver ran through her as memories of the cold, the hunger, and the fear washed over her. She clung to Elias's hand as he opened the car door. Her breathing grew shallow, her small palms slick with sweat. Daddy, I'm scared, she whispered. Elias didn't rush her. He knelt, taking both her hands in his, trying to transfer his own warmth and strength to her. You don't have to be scared anymore. Look, you aren't sitting over there today. You are standing right here with me. You're here to give, not to ask. You're the hero today, Lily. Her father's words seemed to fill her with courage. Lily took a deep breath and nodded. She let go of his hand, took a container of fragrant roasted chicken and a thick wool coat, and walked toward the corner. There, sitting on a damp piece of cardboard, was Mr. Joe. The old ragged homeless man with a tangled white beard was shivering in the wind. Lily remembered him clearly. He was the one who had broken off half of his own stale bread and given it to her on the day she was faint with hunger, having not collected a single coin. Her steps were hesitant at first, but when she saw Mr. Joe cough a long, racking cough, she quickened her pace. She stood before him, her small shadow stretching across the sidewalk. Mr. Joe, Lily said softly. The old man looked up with cloudy eyes, squinting at the clean, pretty little girl standing before him. It took him a long moment to recognize her. Little angel, he rasped, his voice hoarse. Is that you? Did you find your daddy? Lily smiled a radiant smile that seemed to brighten the entire gloomy street corner. She leaned down and respectfully offered him the food and the coat with both hands. This is for you. The food is hot. Please eat it so you can warm up. Mr. Joe's trembling hands accepted the gifts. He opened the container and the steam that rose from the hot food fogged his old glasses. He looked at Lily, then at Elias, who was watching with a smile from a distance. Thank you, child. Thank you, my good girl, Mr. Joe said with a toothless grin, tears rolling down his wrinkled cheeks. You're not a little wet sparrow anymore. You're a young eagle now. The moment she saw Mr. Joe pull on the warm coat and take his first delicious bite of food, an invisible weight lifted from Lily's shoulders. The obsession with hunger, the shame of her past, all of it dissolved like mist in the sun. She realized she had power. The power to bring smiles, to bring warmth to others. She was a giver, a person of value, not the useless burden her mother had called her. Daddy. Lily spun around and ran towards Elias. She threw herself into his arms, wrapping her own around his neck, her face glowing with a happiness he had never seen before. He smiled, Daddy. He loves the coat I gave him. Lily chattered, her eyes sparkling like stars. Daddy being a good person is way more fun than being a rich person, isn't it? I love this feeling. Her innocent words made Elias's eyes sting. He lifted his daughter into the air and spun her around in the middle of the parking lot. You're right, my girl. It's the greatest feeling in the world. I'm so proud of you, Lily. Father and daughter left Queens as the sky began to darken. The sun sank behind the skyscrapers, painting the New York sky in brilliant shades of red and orange. In the car, Lily had fallen asleep exhausted, but with a contented smile still on her lips. Elias drove slowly, watching her in the rearview mirror, his heart filled with a profound peace. The nightmare was well and truly over. The wicked woman was paying her price behind bars, and Lily, his little angel, had found her wings again. The car rolled towards the fiery horizon, leaving the shadows of the past behind, heading straight for a future filled with light and love. Time is the most magical of healers, and a year is long enough for even the deepest wounds to begin to scar over. The penthouse in Midtown Manhattan was no longer a cold museum of wealth. It had become a true home where every corner pulsed with life. The once stark white walls were now covered with special works of art, vibrant crayon drawings, crooked but joyful portraits, and even lopsided knitted scarves framed like masterpieces. The dark reds and blacks of monsters and dark rooms were gone, replaced by brilliant yellow suns, bright blue skies, and giant sunflowers. In the pink bedroom, a room Lily had been too terrified to enter a year ago, a cheerful song could be heard. Lily stood before a full-length mirror, admiring her brand-new school uniform. She was 7 now, taller and healthier. Her golden hair was in 2 neat braids tied with blue ribbons that matched her dress. The hollow cheeks were now full and rosy, her skin smooth and glowing in the morning light. But the biggest change was in her eyes. The fearful, calculating haze was gone. Her blue eyes were now crystal clear, sparkling with mischief and confidence. "Are you ready yet, Princess?" Martha asked, with a smile knitting by the sun-drenched window. "All ready, Grandma," Lily answered brightly. She expertly tied her shoelaces, then ran to her grandmother for a big hug and a loud kiss on her wrinkled cheek. "I'm off to school. Please make apple pie this afternoon." "Of course, darling. Be careful on your way." Lily waved goodbye and then bounded down the hall, the energetic thudding of her footsteps echoing through the apartment. Elias was waiting for her in his study, but before they left, he took a quiet moment for himself. He pulled open the bottom drawer of the oak desk, the very spot where Lily had hidden on her first night home. From the back, he took out an old curled photograph. It was the picture he had snapped with his phone on that fateful day, a small, filthy, emaciated child huddled by a trash can, her eyes filled with despair. Elias looked at the photo one last time. He didn't look at it to dredge up pain or regret. He looked at it as the harshest possible reminder to himself that money is not everything, that his neglect could have cost him dearly, and that he was immeasurably lucky to have won his little angel back from the brink. He gently placed the photo face down at the bottom of the drawer and locked it. Click. The sound was final, like the closing of a door to the past forever. "Daddy, hurry up or we'll be late," Lily's voice called out. "Coming." Elias smiled, straightening his tie as he stepped out into the light. The car pulled up to the gates of a prestigious private elementary school. The schoolyard was alive with the laughter and chatter of hundreds of children. A year ago, Lily would have shrunk from a crowd like this, but today she opened the car door decisively. "Bye, Dad. Pick me up early this afternoon." Lily waved, then ran off to join a group of friends who were calling her name. "Lily, did you bring your painting?" "Of course, I drew a picture of my dad." Elias leaned against the car, watching the small figure with the oversized backpack skip into her classroom. His daughter's joyful laughter mingled with the fresh morning air, sounding like the most beautiful music he had ever heard. A strange and profound peace filled his chest, a feeling no $1,000,000 contract could ever provide. That afternoon, as the setting sun painted the Hudson River, Red father and daughter walked along the breezy riverfront path. The wind blew in from the water, ruffling Lily's golden hair. She held her father's hand tightly, chattering nonstop about her day at school. "My teacher said my painting was the best in the class today, Dad. I drew you and me planting our garden on the roof. She said you have a really happy smile." "Oh, really is my smile that happy?" Elias asked gently, squeezing the small hand in his. Yep, as happy as a sunflower, Lily giggled. They stopped at the railing, watching the sun slowly descend behind the skyscrapers on the opposite shore. The brilliant orange light shimmered on the water's surface like liquid gold. Elias looked down at his daughter. Bathed in the twilight, Lily looked radiant and strong. He made a silent promise to the vast sky above, a promise he would keep for every second of the rest of his life. I will always be here, Lily. Through sunshine and rain, I will always be the sky that watches over you. You will never be cold or lonely again. Lily looked up, her eyes reflecting the glorious sunset. She didn't say anything. She just leaned her head against her father's side in perfect, absolute trust. The silhouettes of father and daughter stretched long on the brick path, merging into one solid, inseparable shape. As the first lights of New York City began to sparkle like millions of stars of hope, Elias took his daughter's hand and they walked on. Ahead of them was not the darkness of a back alley or the fear of tomorrow. Ahead was a wide-open road, illuminated by love and a miraculous rebirth. And that was today's bedtime story. What are your thoughts on Elias and Lily's emotional journey from the heartbreak of the cold streets to the warmth of a father's love? It truly shows that time and presence are worth far more than any fortune. We hope this narrative brought a little light to your day, as we love sharing these heartwarming stories and touching stories with you. Thank you so much for staying with us and listening until the very end. Please leave a comment below and let us know how this story made you feel. We would love to discuss it further with you.